supported by the central government and the 29 states, and to some extent the central bank. And since I took over, we have been trying to work with other countries in the global south, both in South Asia and in Africa and Southeast Asia, to essentially try and build capacity in the area of fiscal policy and macroeconomics that directly increases national ownership over technology, the technology of capacity development, by which I very simply mean that we reduce the need for consultants from the World Bank, ADB, Boston Consulting, etc., and try and grow that capacity within the government, because I believe that that is important, both from the point of view of context autonomy and policy sovereignty. So I was delighted when the Bangladesh government Ministry of Finance reached out to us. And we have since now, it's been almost a year, right? We have begun cooperation with the Fiscal Policy Institute of the Bangladesh government, which is nested in the Ministry of Finance. And we are engaged in a collective effort both to develop capacity there and to engage very actively with the government of Bangladesh in training. We've had a very fruitful exchange of officers coming in from Bangladesh to India. And I am hoping that we will start that process reciprocally with Bangladesh. We have a lot to learn from Bangladesh. They grow faster than us. They have better human development indicators. They have a much better record in inequality, which is really worrying in India now. And therefore, I think that within South Asia, the place to learn is Bangladesh. So this is going to be a learning arrangement. So the Ministry of Finance, obviously, it is going India to Bangladesh, but we are hoping that in all these other areas of real outcomes, also environment, climate, it will be Indians coming to Bangladesh to learn. So we are setting that up. So I thought today what we would do is, so I'd like to thank ORF for giving NIPFP and FPI the space, and thank my very distinguished panelists. It's been a pleasure to meet you, Governor. I've heard of you, taught you by reputation and legend. Not many governors demit office and then become vice chancellors of startup universities. It's a remarkable thing to do. So the format of this conversation will be that I'll open for 5 minutes with a few comments on the fiscal and monetary situation in our countries. And then I'll ask each of the participants to speak about one of the dimensions of this situation. So let me put it, this is not Chatham House rules. I shall have to find polite language. One of the advantages of being an independent think tank is I can be blunt. But that is not a good idea in an international policy forum. So let me say that South Asia as a whole, I think in both in terms of fiscal policy and monetary policy, has certain common challenges. On the fiscal front, our aspirations are for the state to spend on welfare and hi, namaskar. So on welfare, on public goods, on national security, since you're a national security type audience largely. But to do this, the state needs to ideally tax or at least borrow or take foreign aid. And what is happening in both India and Bangladesh is that while expectations from the state in terms of spending money on both development and security and public good delivery is going up, our capacity to tax is sluggish. Our borrowing capacity is limited by our determination to keep our sovereignty. So it's a very peculiar thing about South Asia, unlike Southeast Asia, unlike Africa. We don't like borrowing abroad. And we don't like aid. In the sense, we'd rather not have it. Bangladesh is a classic example. I remember যখন মুক্তিযুদ্ধ হলো, তার পরে I was a kid, but I'd see a lot of Americans and people in the West writing that Bangladesh is a permanent basket case. They will always need aid, in large measure. And today, aid is less than 1.4% of Bangladesh's GDP, if I'm not wrong. India, it is zero. We are a net creditor country. So largely now, the public financial process is domestically financed. But domestic finances are limited and expectations are high. So this is one common fiscal challenge we have. On the monetary policy side, I was just discussing with former governor. Those here from India will know that we are having rather traumatic times in monetary policy. But one thing that is quite interesting for us is that Bangladesh is far more down the journey, I just learned this, of private banks operating than India is. So the problem in India is that when the Reserve Bank, I'm sorry, the national security guys, you can ask people what I'm talking about, but you can Google it too. When the Reserve Bank, the central bank, cuts the what's called the repo rate, which is the rate of interest at which banks borrow from the Reserve Bank. The intention there is if you cut that rate, then banks will cut their lending rates and capital becomes cheaper. But in India, it doesn't happen, or it happens with great effort. Despite the fact that our banks are public sector led. And many people, including me, have been arguing the reason why you don't have what we call this transmission is because our banks are in the public sector, and so they're bureaucratically run, and so the bank management is scared to take risks. They'd rather just put money in government debt. And so there's no transmission. But Governor just told me that in Bangladesh, they have actually reduced the share of the public sector banking system to just 25%. And there is no transmission for a different set of reasons. So there's a lot to learn here. So our fiscal policy is challenged, our monetary policy is challenged, but both countries have secured, despite that, reasonable fiscal prudence. Our debt sustainability is not in question. Reasonable ability to control inflation and keep it non-volatile. And I think now for the last 10, 15 years, despite the tantrums of the aid industry in the case of Bangladesh, I've worked in this business for a long time, with the aid business. They throw tantrums. They don't like your face, this cut aid. I have a graph somewhere, I don't want to embarrass anybody, particular country, how volatile it is. That's why you don't like aid, you want to get rid of it. But despite those tantrums, great current account management and very limited exchange rate volatility in the Dhaka. And I know that because since the rupee is the anchor currency in the region, you just have to look at Pakistan and Bangladesh and look at what has happened. Bangladesh has kept an orderly depreciation with India, which they have limited because they are net importers from India. So you don't want those imports that they cannot substitute to become more expensive. So Dhaka is about 20% overvalued with the risk. That's all, 15 to 20% in my judgment. Now, of course, the rupee is overvalued against the dollar, so the Dhaka is overvalued against the dollar. That's a transmission India gives Bangladesh, but still. And therefore, you have a very interesting situation here. Two poor emerging economies, the second, Bangladesh, now regarded as the big success in the region. But I can see on the faces of policymakers when I interact with you guys, the same fear we have in India. There's a fear of being called a successful poster boy or poster girl because you know inside your house how fragile that success is. Amrata Jani. And so there's permanent fear that, and sense of responsibility that this success that we have inherited, those of us carrying it forward will lose. And I assure you that is also the case in India. But with very limited macroeconomic room in terms of fiscal policy, monetary policy. So how do we navigate this going forward? So I'm going to start by asking each of you a specific question, and if you could respond to that. Then I will move to the audience. But I will, since this is not a specialist conference, I will exercise when we have very eminent and very senior policymakers here, I will rule questions that are not pertinent to the topic out of order, so that we get a good conversation going. So, आपने से किस senior की? No, उन्होंने तो senior. Between the two of you. अच्छा, with your permission, I'll start with you. So tell me, it would be good for the audience to know कि, let me speak in English. In this particular circumstance of success on the human development front, success on the other front, to what extent does the finance ministry feel that you need to have institutional reforms to be able to collect more taxes and to spend better? Or do you think it is just something that, will happen automatically, or are there some interesting or serious structural reforms you need?
Thank you, Dr. Roy, and Honorable Dr. Farashuddin sir, distinguished panelists, and distinguished participants. Good morning. It's really a good... Yeah. So it's really a good opportunity for us to share the success story of Bangladesh with all the friends from different countries. We all know that Bangladesh has done a stellar performance in terms of economic growth. Particularly in the last fiscal year, we achieved the highest growth rate in Asia-Pacific region. And in the preceding 3 years, we also achieved 7.4% growth, which was also highest in the region. And not only the growth, the economy also has gone through a significant structural transformation. Right now, the contribution of industry in our economy is 35%, which was only 26% 10 years back. The per capita income of the people has also increased tremendous in dramatic way. In fact, it increased by 2.5 times in last 10 years. Right now, we are the top per capita income growth achieving country in the world. And this success is also actually complemented by strong macroeconomic stability. And that has brought the other miracles. I will just explain, and probably that will substantiate your answer. The stability that we achieved is the real success from the Ministry of Finance, as we consider. The government kept the borrowing or the deficit at a very low level, at the targeted level, and that deficit has actually helped to bring the inflation down at the 5% rate. 10 years back, we were experiencing almost 2-digit inflation rate. That used to have negative impact on the welfare of the people and also in many other socio-economic agendas to achieve in a negative way. So the inflation has gone down, as well as the government debt has also gone down dramatically. Right now, we have only 34% debt to GDP ratio, which is also lowest in the world. And I must say, it can be dream for many countries in the world. So this were the success from the achieving macroeconomic stability. And that has prepared the springboard for achieving the socioeconomic outcomes, which is more important. And probably Dr. Roy is mentioning to that extent. The poverty level, which we have 40% in 2005, has just brought down halfway. It's now 21%. And even the extreme poverty has gone down to the 11%. And the depth and severity of poverty has also gone tremendously down. The Honorable Prime Minister in the inaugural session, in fact, mentioned this. And she clearly mentioned which one is the greatest enemy of the region. And the single word was the poverty. And Bangladesh probably can give good example of achieving this, to fight against this common enemy. Not only this, that's poverty, in terms of education, healthcare, women's empowerment, in all the social sectors, our achievement has been actually complemented by the performance in the economy and also in the stability. Particularly, if we consider the human capital index, we score 106th out of 159 countries, which is, our ranking is higher than our close neighbors. And in terms of global competitiveness index, we also rank better than our peers. So this achievement actually has been brought by, first, the policies of the government. I mean, if you want to address issues like social agenda or economic, you must have a plan and policies. And that policy was actually delivered by the government back in 2009. We got a Vision 2021, which has been supplemented by 2 consecutive 5-year plans, 6th 5-year plan and 7th 5-year plan. So when you jump with the plan and whatever limited resources you have, it actually doesn't matter how the resource, how much it is limited. It requires how committed the government is, how committed the whole machinery is to implement or materialize the objectives of the plan. And of course, you need the vision. Right in 2009, we have the Vision 2021 to make the country a middle income. And while through this journey, the country actually got elevated to a middle human development index group in 2013. And we also achieved the World Bank Lower Middle Income Group status in 2015. And in 2018, the country fulfilled all three graduation criteria. And this were actually possible through the implementation of the successive plans, and the plans were also complemented by the policies in the respective socio-economic sectors, like, say, health policy, National Health Policy 2011, National Education Policy, Women Development Policies, and even the Social Security Strategy that has imposed the government to divert the hard-earned resources to achieve the socio-economic activities. So, yes, the countries in the South Asian region has limitations in creating fiscal space, no doubt, but it's not the question of balancing between the competing sectors. Rather, it is the issue of materializing the vision that has been delivered by the leaders and the preparations to implement the visions. I mean, the plans and programs that you need to implement. So, in no way, the constraint of fiscal space is not an issue. Bangladesh is a glaring example that with a very limited resource, whether you compare it with the land-man ratio or its ratio with any natural resources, you can count many hazards and limitations for Bangladesh. But as a citizen, I can tell you can count very less resources except the human resources. And Bangladesh has deliberately cared about improving the quality of human resources through education, through health, through skill development, through social welfare, and many more. So once you have the vision and you have the plan in your front and you have the leadership, you can actually beat whatever is in your front, whatever complexity or problem is in your front. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, may I ask you, Governor, you were present at the birthing of Bangladesh, and soon it'll be 50 years. And since you have been part of the parenting of this country, bringing it up from, remember in the 70s what they would say about Bangladesh, permanently independent, kichu hobe na. And what he's saying is the exact polar opposite, all in 50 years, in one lifetime. 2021, as a senior policymaker in this country, if you had to give advice to the person on your left, what are the three things that worry you about the stability of this country going forward? Yes. Of course.
ঠিক আছে? Can you hear me, please? Okay. Dr. Roy, other distinguished members of the panel, and a very enlightened and powerful audience. Assalamu alaikum. Adab. Good morning. Welcome, and today is the final day, and I'm privileged to have been asked to speak about the fiscal, monetary, and the challenges and this great event organized by BIIS and ORF jointly. Basically a teacher. So I would like to first comment on Dr. Roy's remarks that how can a governor go and start a university. See, when India set up its first University Grants Commission, the search for a chairman, and lo and behold, Mr. Chintamani Deshmukh, who just vacated the Minister of Finance, he was made the first chairman of the University Grants Commission of India. So I have reasons to feel inspired from that example, and many others. Now, about your questions, when I go there a little later, I'd like to trace a few elements in our history. Are we a mystery? Are we a consistent performer? Let us look at our glorious War of Liberation. 9 months, and we call in Bangla Eksagar Rakto Periye. We got our independence. Our leader, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, father of the nation, I think he's a unique. He fought and got the independence for us. Specific ideology. What is the ideology? Remove the tears from all people, bring a smile into the face of everybody, and establish Sonar Bangla. By the way, let me say that even in 325 BC, this place was called Gangaridi, was Sonar Bangla. And when Alexander came to India to invade, he came up to the borders of Gangaridi and found out the prowess of Bengal, and he saluted the soil and said, "Not my job." He went away. So 9 months, glorious war to get our independence. Of course, not to forget the tremendous help and inspiration, material and moral, provided by our big and great neighbor, the Republic of India. So the country starts with $8 billion of GDP. Now it is 300 billion. Starts with a budget of 887 crores of Dhaka. Now it is almost 500 crores of Dhaka. The country starts with a per capita income of around $120. Now it is 1902. The country starts with its people life expectancy at birth of 43 years. Now it is 72 years. Starts with infant mortality rate of 270. Now it is 29. And I can go on. There are many. And my witnesses are two people, mainly Nobel laureate Amartya Sen and late Dr. Mahbubul Haq of Pakistan. They have paid glowing tribute to the growth and, more importantly, its transformation into social progress. So we have come a long way, but I will come to the question, what are the challenges? Formidable challenges. When you start a country with almost no physical infrastructure, so now we have reasonably good road network, but unfortunately, in the process, we neglected the railways. We have, I would say, very significant buildup of energy. We have working ports, although by South Asian standards, we are much slower, no question. I have told about the budget, but I'll go straight into the challenges. The most serious challenge faced in Bangladesh, one of the three, one is, of course, the fiscal revenue. We have done very well, but we preferred to build up the physical infrastructure first. So when there was a tussle between allocating resources between social sectors and physical infrastructure, it had to be physical infrastructure. But I must say in the last 11 years or so, the attention given to the social sector has been remarkable within the limitations of resources. So with a 9 or 10% tax GDP ratio, we can go only this far. We have remarkably privatized the banking system. We have actually the wealth is now in the hands of the people. But the Bangladesh economy, let us say, if you look at the agriculture, the structure of GDP in 1972 was 54% primary, 17% secondary, and 29% tertiary. It has changed, but not necessarily in favor of development. How has it changed? Primary, 14%. Secondary, 31% or 32%. Tertiary, 54%. Looks like a developed country. So trade and commerce have prospered at the expense of manufacturing. I think this is the second largest challenge to Bangladesh today after tax revenue taxation. We have a lot of money around. Many people are rich. We fought in Pakistan against 22 families who are Kotiputis. Now we had 5,000 people added to the rank of Kotiputis. But only problem is we, as the administration, as the people, as the tax collector, as the taxpayer, have utterly failed to tap them to get money out of them. Boston Consulting Group says there are 12.5 million people whose per capita income is $4,000. All of them are taxable, but only 2 million people actually pay taxes. So this is a big challenge. And in the budget of 2019-20, significant allocation has been made to the social sector. No question about it. About 5% people are covered. But the country whose Gini coefficient was 0.3 in Bangabandhu's Bangladesh is now 0.48. So it's a remarkable inequality that has been created. But this is only natural. When you modify socialism, I always take care to say this. Sheikh Mujib's socialism was very different from the varieties in Beijing and in Moscow. Article 13 of our constitution says forms of ownership of properties will be 3, not 1, as in a socialist system. Public, private, and cooperative. So this, and then of course, after the tragedy of 1975, the economic policy underwent a metamorphosis. The policymakers opted for private, market mechanism. It was perhaps necessary. But when you grow with a private sector mechanism, when you want to go fast, you will inevitably create disparity, which you have done. But we have not been able to incorporate in the policy setup in the 80s and 90s, even now, a framework to get the fiscal benefits out of the tremendous progress that has been made in Bangladesh. Right now, I'll close in a couple of minutes. Interest rate. Our entrepreneurs have done very well, but they are now severely handicapped. Part of the handicap has been created by themselves. I have no qualm in not making this allegation. So when the country was born, we could buy 40 Indian rupees by 100 taka. Now we can buy 72. In Pakistan, it is more dramatic. We would buy 65 Pakistani rupee with 100 taka. Now we buy 145 Pakistani rupee. So what does it mean? They have depreciated significantly. We have stuck to our erratic guns, let the currency appreciate, so the exporters are in very serious disarray. Importers are very happy. It has happened in all countries. Importers and the rich people always like the currency to remain overvalued for their benefits. So currency is a problem. Interest rate. I was looking around. Bangladesh is one of the highest interest rate countries. The government has been trying its best to bring it down to single digits. No success so far. But I think the government should work through the mechanism rather than through moral so-and-so alone. If the bottlenecks and compartmentalization in the financial sector could be removed, if competition could be created, then possibly the interest rate could come down to 7 or 8%. A grave mistake was made in 1992 at the ill advice of a foreign agency, a multilateral, when the long-term project lending was given to the commercial banks. Short-term deposit, long-term lending, definite recipe for disaster. And this is what has happened. But I am a born optimist. I think the difficulties that I have mentioned are remediable. I hope the government is conscious about it, and removing the fiscal and monetary, I mean, the exchange rate problems are not so difficult, but we must work through the market. And since the physical infrastructure is there, one of the topmost priorities should be enhancing the capacity of the quality of human resources. In 72, this is the last statistics. 72, we had 30,000 university goers. Now we have 3.7 million. But perhaps there is a million mark question about the quality. I'm an optimist. Since we have a momentum, we will carry on, but we need to do the correcting that I have mentioned. It is within the means, within the framework of the policymakers. We would, as predicted, as we have already surpassed Pakistan in terms of per capita income, we are supposed to surpass India in another 12 years. Maybe we'll do that. But let me, as a closing remark, say, creating a customs union certainly put fire on the wings of growth. But NTBs are the surest instruments to extinguish this power. Thank you very much, Dr. Roy.
So now let me turn to you, and if you could pick up on this revenue challenge and tell us what you think can be done to sort of increase the fiscal space.
Honorable panelists and distinguished participants. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for having me as a panelist. The question Dr. Roy asked about actually whether the government of Bangladesh, finance ministry, we recognizes that to strengthen the, whether there is a need to strengthen the revenue mobilization effort and what government is doing to strengthen the revenue mobilization activities of the country. So in answer to Dr. Roy's query, I'll refer to the budget speeches of the Honorable Finance Minister. Honorable Finance Minister in his fiscal year 1920 budget speech very categorically acknowledges the need for actually strengthen the revenue mobilization effort. It is mentioned in the budget speech that it is admitted that Bangladesh have one of the lowest tax GDP ratio in the region and probably in the world as well. So but we have my colleague from the Finance Ministry, our Additional Secretary, and also Dr. Farashuddin Ahmed mentioned the successes the country made, and also we have a very ambitious target. We have ambitions by 2024 to become a middle income country, middle income country, and by 2041 to become a developed country. So to materialize those aspiration, we have to strengthen actually our revenue mobilization effort. And in the budget speech also, there is an outline given how government is thinking to strengthen the revenue mobilization effort. In 2012, we enacted the VAT law that we couldn't actually implement for the last few years because of some preparatory lackings, and also there was some other problems. But this financial year, from July this year, we started implementing the VAT law 2012, and we hope government is expecting that with the implementation, if the VAT law fully can be implemented, then 2% of the GDP, there will be additional revenue of 2% of the GDP if we can properly implement the VAT law. And also now we are, the draft customs law is now, we are working on the preparation of the customs law, and government also is thinking enacting new income tax law. And as Dr. Farashuddin Ahmed mentioned, that we also recognizes that compared to the economic development, the comparatively low people, actually less number of people are paying taxes. So the government and BR also has a plan to bring more people under the tax net, and we want within 2-3 years, we want to include taxpayers, we want to include 10 million people in the tax net. The plan is that by next 2-3 years, instead of 2 million people who submitted their tax return last year, over the 2-3 years, we hope, and the government is undertaking necessary actions to make it happen that by 2-3 years, 10 million people will will be brought under the tax net. So, and also every year, the probably coming week is a tax week. There will be tax fair. We will hold a tax fair in Dhaka and also elsewhere in the country. So we are aware, and multifaceted activities is implemented to strengthen the revenue mobilization. Thank you.
So, Dr. Shana, so coming from the Bangladesh Institute of Development Studies, to what extent do you see these macroeconomic challenges as an impediment to, as former governor was saying, both of them were saying, Bangladesh's development transformation? Or is the challenge not macroeconomic? Is it political, is it something else?
Thank you, Dr. Roy, for inviting me in this session to talk as a panelist. It's an honor for me to share the stage with such distinguished people. So yes, this is true that Bangladesh has made remarkable progress in terms of economic growth and has made substantial progress in terms of various socio-economic indicators despite many impediments. Like we started with a desperate condition after the independence. We have limited resources with a huge population. We are faced with natural disaster every year. There is allegation of widespread corruption and records of systematic governance failure. But by many metrics, as Sir already said, that we have made progress in various socio-economic indicators, like the poverty incidence has declined from 70% from 1971 to 21% in recent years. Gender parity has been achieved in primary and secondary school enrollment. We are now the second largest exporter of ready-made garments in the world. So by development practitioners, many say it as development paradox or development surprise. But is the development achievement of Bangladesh is beyond any explanation? To some extent, as the Nobel laureate Amartya Sen said, the human development can be achieved in two ways. One is the income-mediated way, and another is the support-led pathway. For Bangladesh, neither is totally applicable. Like the economic growth of Bangladesh, we achieved a sustainable economic growth and a moderate economic growth, but it never exceeded 7% until the recent years. And the public expenditure for health and education, that was also below the average of low-income countries. But still, we managed to achieve success in the social development indicators. But now the challenge is, these are the rosy picture, but if we are these numbers, are these statistics really being enjoyed by the people? If we look at that, there are a different scenario, like the not so popular, if we look at the not so popular indicator, like the governance indicator, if I mention one or two indicators, Bangladesh are still on the bottom of the ladder in case of governance indicators. Let me mention a few, like according to the World Governance Indicator in 2016, Bangladesh was 114 out of 156 countries. The voice and accountability, it was 101. For political stability, 138, and the list can go long and long. But I'm not being pessimistic, but standing at this point with a huge success in the past, we also have to be very careful that we are not very self-content, and but we have to take care of these issues. Like, yes, we have achieved success, but still there are limitations that we have to overcome. If we compare with our neighboring nations, we have already, there is also, as Sir said, there is also a very interesting political, economic explanation behind the success of Bangladesh achieved so far, that Bangladesh is predominant with informal institution, and it has taken the dividend, enjoyed the dividend of using these informal institutions effectively. But we have taken the dividend and exhausted the dividend of these informal institutions, and no such new institution, we have not found no such informal institutions to take dividend in near future. So we have to think that and find out new and innovative ways to face our challenges. We have already plucked the low-hanging fruits, and to go forward, we have to find the new and innovative solutions like we have did before. For example, the microcredit programs targeted at women, the way the NGOs have worked, and thanks to our government, that our government has, all regimes of government has let the NGOs work with minimal interference, and the NGOs have worked not only with microcredit, but in all social sectors, starting from immunization, to to sanitation and hygiene, for education, and the list can go on and on. But we know that innovation can only work at free environment with freedom of expression. So the government has also need to ensure that freedom of speech is protected, and in this way we can go forward. Otherwise, there is there is a concern that we might regress instead of going forward.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid we don't have time for questions, but I must just say three things that come out here very important from what all of you have said. One, I think a common challenge for all South Asian countries, certainly India and Bangladesh, is that, India was very proud of having formal institutions. My institutions are rotting. They're rotting from within. There's a recognition that, but we have no idea what to do about it. You have to build them. So I think there's great scope here for us to collaboratively work together. Second comment I want to make is I think the way we are going in our economy, you're going to go ahead of us much faster than you think. When I open the morning paper every day, that's the impression I get. The third thing I think that Shana pointed out is very important, that আপনি বলেছেন না মুক্তিযুদ্ধ হলো, ওটাতে একটা খুব, sorry, after the War of Independence, there was a very important thing that Bangladesh had, which we had after our own War of Independence, which is a sense of national purpose and a fear that this hard-fought independence would be compromised. And that fear led to informality, ways of working, and I think those were the low-hanging fruits you harvested. But now you have to go beyond that. The NGO movement was the closest that came to a social movement in Bangladesh. And that social movement harvested great rewards. In India, our problem is that we have no more social movements. Everything we do technocratically. Everything we do bureaucratically. Our politicians behave like bureaucrats. So one danger Bangladesh should avoid is doing that. The role of political mobilization, social mobilization, I think is important. And perhaps even as economists, when we discuss these things, we have to start internalizing them. The last thing I would like to say as someone whose grandfather was born in Bangladesh is, knowing the Bengalis, I have no fear of any problem with freedom of expression of a Bengali. You cannot take it away from a Bengali. It's the last race or nation in the world where I can imagine that anybody can take away your freedom of expression. Kaj korbe na if you try. That is why after your independence and some experimentation, now nobody can imagine Bangladesh being under military rule. So I think there's a lot we can learn from Bangladesh, and I hope that this collaboration going forward we can broaden to bring in these political economy dimensions. And thank you, Arif, for giving us this space to share this with your audience. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished speakers and the moderator. Please come forward for a photograph. Where's the photographer? Okay, perfect. Now we are going to move into the next session.
clarifies that there is no other options but to establish collaboration and cooperation between and among different sectors of economic development. This also advocates the resource integration of public and private sector, especially in financial sector. Finance is a powerful tool of economic growth, especially in a resource-scarce developing country like Bangladesh. Financial services cover a host of transactions, including credit, savings, payment, and insurance. Financial service providing its process by which finance is mobilized and used in the economy. A developed, inclusive financial system not only expedites the process of resource mobilization and use, it also provides financial services, the quality services to all who need them. It creates employment opportunities, ensures economic and financial stability through reducing vulnerability, and contributes to poverty reduction. Access to a well-functioning financial system can economically and socially empower individuals, in particular the poor people, allowing them to better integrate into the economy and actively contribute to development. In an inclusive financial system, no segment of the population remains excluded from accessing financial services. Bangladesh is a pioneer in financial inclusion with its recent strides towards a digital Bangladesh, rapid development of the financial sector, rich heritage in microfinance, and unprecedented gains in adopting digital finance and expanding mobile financial services. The government treats finance as a powerful tool of inclusive growth and shared prosperity. Available evidence shows significant financial impact of access to and usage of financial services on social and economic outcomes at both household business levels, and access to finance is seen as essential for poverty eradication in Bangladesh. Conversely, persistent financial exclusion has significant negative impacts or effects on prosperity, inclusive growth, income equality, social cohesion, and financial stability. The country's development strategies recognize the national development will be undermined if expanded financial services are not made available to the entire population. Since the country's aim is to achieve a happy, prosperous, and enlightened Bangladesh, which is free from hunger, poverty, inequality, illiteracy, and corruption, and belongs completely to its citizens and maintains a healthy environment, access to finance is taken as an important precondition for inclusive development. In view of this, we are developing a national strategy for financial inclusion, which will be a step forward to fulfilling SDG Target 17. Our financial sector must act for our upcoming graduation to mid-income country by 2021 and graduation from LDC, least developed country, in 2024, and becoming a developed nation, that is Vision 2041, as said by Honorable Prime Minister. In this context, innovation and collaboration will be the key. To cater financial need of different population segment and economic sector, there is no alternative to develop newer financial instrument and service delivery channel like mobile financial services. Bangladesh Bank data shows that nearly 76 million people used mobile financial services for various transactions like inward remittances, cash flows, salary disbursement, utility bills payment, merchant payments, and even government bill payments. Through 16 banks, average monthly transaction in mobile financial services mode stood nearly 35 billion Bangladeshi taka. To promote this development, investment will have a crucial role to play. Here comes the issue of collaboration between public and private sector. In the coming years, financial technology like MFS, mobile financial services, will be one of the most vital tools for expanding finance for development. For promoting financial technology, investment must come through a concerted effort from both public and private sector, assuming private sector to become the major user of fintech. Public sector investment can play a catalyst role in this context. For example, if a blockchain-based common industry structure for credit registry has to be built, it will necessarily require investment from both public and private sector. Thus, this will not only be cost-effective and time-efficient for the stakeholders, but also it will be all-inclusive. This collaboration is also applicable for development of our long-term financing market. To our country, financing is still largely dependent on state-owned commercial banking sector, which has created multiple issues like rising NPL. That is the mismatch between banks' short-term deposit and long-term funding, which impacts badly the development of capital market. In this regard, diverse financial instruments like bond need to be on board. Bond market development is the is one of the core mandates or issues of the current government. Last week, launching of Bangla Bond, denominated in Bangladeshi Taka at London Stock Exchange, is a step towards that direction. To build a sustainable development-oriented bond market, there must be coordinated funding from both public and private sector. In the context of SDG and Paris Agreement, climate finance, socially responsible finance will be next generation financing avenue for ensuring climate resilient, inclusive development. Inclusive, sustainable development. Currently, climate finance is addressed both by public and private sector in Bangladesh. For instance, government funding is channeling broadly for climate adaptation, and finances from bank and non-bank financial institutions are going to climate mitigation initiatives. Yet, there are still lack of diverse financial instruments like climate insurance and green bond. To catalyze these sort of instruments, public-private collaboration is inevitably important. In our history, financial intermediation, that is microfinance, has played a remarkable role in reaching to the poor people. That is the poor people, it's very difficult for the poor people to have access to institutional credit facility. And you know the microfinance, Bangladesh is pioneer in microfinance, and microfinance sector, they are playing that role to reach to the poor. In recent years, the microfinance industry has been facing funding crunch, where integration of public sector is needed through effective investment. In coming years, venture capital, alternative investment will be one of the impactful instruments for sustainable development, which is currently under government attention for better coordination with the private sector players. Considering the stated issues and current landscaping of financial service providing in Bangladesh, there is a need in appearance for developing a national strategy for public-private funding, moving towards our longer term of vision of Delta 2100. To materialize the Golden Bengal, the dream of Bangabandhu, let's work together. In this way, we can build a poverty and extortion or prosperous Bangladesh, extortion-free prosperous Bangladesh. Thank you. Thank you very much. And if you have any question or any issue to raise, I'm happy to receive those.
Hello, Mr. Islam. I am Neha Kumar. I work for Climate Bonds Initiative, looking after the India program. And your suggestion on strengthening the domestic bond market as well as raising capital from international capital markets is a very welcome one. In fact, we've been associated with conducting a study for the Bangladesh Bank in trying to explore the potential of green bonds for investing and mobilizing money for mitigation as well as adaptation and resilience projects. Since yesterday, there was a session yesterday on mobilizing, on looking at climate resilience and coastal communities. And I brought that point yesterday as well. And I thought it would be good to inform the House as well as, share this information, that a more deep conversation on how to do that in terms of, bond financing through international investors, capital which is available, which is waiting and looking for credible, high-quality projects. That can be a conversation that we can, of course, take offline and also pursue further. So very, very glad that Bangladesh is actually at the level of Ministry of Finance, at the level of Central Bank, is looking at these alternative options, which I think will be key to having climate resilient economy, if I were to put it like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Basically, climate resilient economy or climate resilient infrastructure, these are very important issues for Bangladesh, because Bangladesh is one of the most climate vulnerable country in the world. And it is very unfortunate that is our contribution to greenhouse gas emission is very negligible or almost nil. But we are not getting enough international climate finance. In particular, the international financial mechanism, that is UNFCCC, that is the Green Climate Fund, they are not working well. And it is our legitimate claim. It is our legitimate claim. If you go to the coastline of Bangladesh, you can see the conditions people are living in. Even a cyclone that hit Bangladesh a couple of days ago, you can, all news media, that is, they are publishing this news. So this is high time for the international community to give attention to these issues. That is, people keep talking. If we keep talking, but if we don't have any means of implementation, then I don't understand that is where we are heading for. Regarding the international finance, yes, that is the launching of bond, the Bangla bond. This is the first initiative that we have taken. And this is the, government is very determined because the bond market development or capital market development, these are important issues. At the moment, that is for industrialization or capital fundraising, the industry or businesses, they are too much dependent on bank, state-owned commercial banks, and there is a mismatch because the banks, they take short-term deposit, but they do long-term financing. So interest rate and all these issues are very important factors here. So keeping in view all these issues, that is, we are planning to develop the bond market, and in order to do that, we are trying to identify the barriers, that is, which create barriers for the development of bond market. So we are also trying to reach to the international community. International, basically the Bangladeshi diaspora who are living outside, they are very interested to invest in Bangladesh. That is one option, and also the international borrowers, the people that is who will be interested to invest in Bangladesh. So this is very at the initial, at the preliminary stage, but we are developing the policy and other things to develop the bond market, and we are all working with ADB, Asian Development Bank, and the IFC. They help us to. They are helping us to launch the bond. So this is the way we are working. The Bangladesh Bank, international development partners like World Bank and ADB. We are working to develop that.
Just wanted to mention that there is a lot going on in India as well. So I think
Yes.
this would be a very good point of conversation between India and Bangladesh to learn from each other and to actually promote some of the measures that we are taking in India, because bond market in India is still
Yes.
shallow. It may be bigger than Bangladesh, but it requires a whole lot of measures, which we are putting in place. So that's again a bilateral conversation to be had between Bangladesh and Indian efforts.
Yes. No, we are open to discuss with anybody. That is whether definitely our neighboring countries, they are our neighbors. So, and we tend to follow them. So that's why that is the FID, particularly Financial Institutions Division, Bangladesh Bank, and the development partners, as I mentioned, we are working together, and we are taking very concrete steps. That is, in particular, that is removing all tax barriers and other barriers to develop the bond market. And it is a need. It is a crying need at the moment. That is, we have to develop our capital market, we have to develop our bond market, and also we have to think about the alternative investment opportunities. That is the venture capital, startup, this sort of things also government is trying to promote. For the first time in Bangladesh, that is, the government has allocated a significant amount of money for the startup businesses. So these are the issues that we are working on. And still we are learning, definitely we are learning, because our capital market is very old, but it is yet to be fully developed. So yes, that is, if there is any opportunity to discuss this issue, that is bilateral or multilateral, we are ready to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Islam.
We are running out of time for this session.
Well, only straight to question.
Okay, just then maybe a 30-second question.
Okay,
and
this
a
is
30-second
Alauddin.
response.
I was a member of Bangladesh Energy Regulatory Commission. I am a faculty and also do news presentation on television. You said that it is encouragingly high in proportion and also in number, the mobile financial service users in Bangladesh. Do you have any plan, or just briefly, or any primary thoughts about taking financial literacy things to those particularly illiterate part of the people?
Financial literacy, it is an integral part of the whole process. That is, we are providing financial literacy, and definitely that is when people will, that is the mobile financial services, it needs financial technology to expand. So the people who will use them, definitely they will record the financial literacy. And yes, it is in our mind, that is, when we will develop something, that is the financial literacy that will be inbuilt in the whole system, so that people can understand that what they are doing, what they are using. Thank you very much. I think the time is over.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please join me in applauding the Senior Secretary for the delightful.
Speaker's room, and we all agreed that instead of it being very formal, it should rather be a conversation about the culture and commerce in the clothing industry of Bangladesh. Well, we all know the history of the Muslim, and we all know that the artisans in this part of the region, particularly in Bengal, has always been very proficient in doing their artwork using the handlooms and those things. And of course, Muslim was one of the finest products that has ever come out from this part of the world. And then during the process of the British colonial rule, and then the Indian subcontinent and our independence and post-independence, it's not very surprising that the first industry that has taken off globally is the ready-made garments sector of Bangladesh, which contributes to almost close to $34 billion worth of export. It is 83% of the total export earning of the country, and we are the second largest exporter of ready-made garments in the world. I'm very pleased to have three very distinguished ladies amongst us in the panel. It's a very gender-balanced panel, as you can clearly see. First and foremost, I don't have to introduce Bibi Russell, the fashion designer and former international model. A big round of applause for Bibi. She has really put Bangladesh fashion in the global map, and I really wish that we from the industry could use her more. Perhaps that's something that we can talk about today. And we have Sarah Karim, who's a designer, a very famous local designer. I was just telling her that, I don't meet her very often, but I see her bags when I come in from the office, because my wife has bought most of the clothing line from her. So very warm welcome to Sarah as well. Then, of course, Shopna Bhomik, our very own Shopna Bhomik, who's the country manager of Marks and Spencer's of Bangladesh. They are one of the biggest buyers of Bangladesh RMG products. So very a mixed and exciting panel. Why don't I start off with Bibi Russell, and what I had started upon, the context of the history of artisans in Bangladesh, the history of Muslim, and in the current context of the global clothing industry. How can we make a connection between the two? Because we are always still using the designs that are being provided to us by the foreign brands. Why can't local designers, you have proved yourself that you can actually be a brand. Why can't we have more of them coming up and contributing to the ready-made garment sector designing? Yeah, you're working now.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure and honor for me to be here. Not often I get invited to speak with such a wonderful audience. Thank you. It's a very important question. I just want to tell you a little bit about me. I came back to Bangladesh to promote local craft. You know, Bangladesh has so much population, nearly 170 million people. If you think about after agriculture is craft. And I was brought up in Bangladesh, my childhood, so I know the beautiful things they can do. You know, I was inspired by the weavers and craftspeople. So I went to Europe to study, and when I was mentally and physically ready to give up everything to show the world not the misery of poverty, the beauty lies on poverty, the magical things they do with their fingers. So, when I Bibi Russell, Fashion for Development is my brand. It's 100% Bangladeshi, 100% made fabric and ingredients, they're made by the local people. And I would like to say what is fashion for me. Fashion is a culture, because in this room, a lot of people are wearing suit, tie, jeans, but if you look at them, you know they come from this part of the world. You can see the culture. They don't look like English or American or French. So that is very important. Fashion is a culture, and it's a necessity. Like all of you here, you know, you have to have a piece of cloth to cover your pride. That is for me fashion. You know, I make fashion for everyone, everyone. You know, my office is in Motijhil during Eid, and Puja rickshaw pullers and say, Appa, we want a shirt made by you. I make for them what they can afford. You know, like jeans. You can buy a jeans for $2, $5. If you want to have Armani, you can buy it for $200. I do ready-to-wear fashion. And about branding, what you said, it's very important. I studied in London. I was recognized by the British Fashion Council. First thing I did copyright, brand my name, Bibi Russell Fashion for Development. I don't think it's important for the people in Bangladesh, but for me, it's very important. So, my brand, I promote Bangladesh, and it is recognized by the world because I studied in a proper fashion school. Anything like, I want to write Bangla. If I don't know the grammar of Bangla, how could I write? Or English, or Hindi, or anything. Fashion also have a grammar. I'm glad that I studied abroad. There are very few people made by the European. Though I wear sari, I look like I'm 100% made by the European. If you write, if you know the grammar, you don't need a Mont Blanc to write. You can write with a biro. So I studied in a very good college. Though I do local thing, but I do ready-to-wear, mix and match, tunique and thing. But this is what very important they want. But when I came back, I want to tell you, my mother was alive. I used to think with my money, I will make all the village people come out of poverty. But when I start to work, I realize it's peanut. I'm working with thousands of people. But I could never realize that I will not have a financier, banker, supporting Armani, even Sabasati, Rohit Bal, they all have. But people ask me, why don't you make a garment? With all the respect of garment industry, because that took #2 in the world, I couldn't believe that no one will sponsor me. But Bangladesh in the fashion world is gone there. I don't know whether you go through internet because we have digital Bangladesh. Since 2014, world top designers. B.B. Russell, Bangladesh is there.
Excellent, excellent.
So branding, I want to branding because Bangladesh has so much talent. I cannot tell you how many countries want me to uplift their crafts. But we need resources, we need money. I'm also, when I think 10, I do only one. When I work in India or other country, Uzbekistan, I think 10, I do 20. Because there is financial support. So please, Bangladesh full of young talent, Bangladesh will go there, and fashion industry is very important. It's one of the most important sustainable development. Please go through it. Everyone is giving, because no human being in 20th century go naked. You need a piece of cloth.
Thank
With
you.
that, you make sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you, Bibi. Wonderful. And the key takeaway from her deliberation is that we need to use B.B. Russell as the brand ambassador. No. As the brand ambassador for the Bangladesh clothing industry going forward. And whatever you talked about the challenges, I think the onus is up on us, particularly BGMEA, because I'm representing BGMEA as well. And I assure you that we can have this discussion going forward. So thank you very much. A very interesting perspective you've given. Now over to Sarah. She's there. Okay, fine, we'll use her as a brand ambassador. But local pool of resources. You do a lot of design of Bangladeshi, using Bangladeshi materials, and it has become quite popular. And of course, a lot of ladies, they are your customers, my wife being one of them, and I'm sure many other gentlemen here, their wives also. So where are we getting these pools of resources? Are we nurturing them properly? Is there a structured, formal mechanism put in place where we can groom such talents going forward? What's your take on that?
A very good morning to all of you, and Assalamu alaikum. My take on it would really be what Bibi Appa also said. So what we work with also, we work with a pool of artisans who we are trying to promote, and we try and give them more and more employment. What I sell is, of course, different from, say, what Bibi Appa is doing. Mine is more of an high-end, we do high-end luxury products, but yet work on Bangladeshi fabrics. Our artisans are 100% Bangladeshi. Obviously, we work only here. We do not, a lot of people think that maybe the work is done outside. It is not. All the work is done here, and that's something I'm very passionate about. The fact that, in fact, I came into this industry because we had a pool of artisans who my Nani Shashuri actually had trained. And these are artisans. Remember that in the older times when there were Nawabs and Maharajas, these artisans had royal patronage, and that's how they survived. But once, that era was gone, these artisans then had no employment. Some of them went back to doing agriculture. And so these are the group of people who are trying to bring back into the fold, and, people who do Mughal era, craft like the Zardozi and the Karchopi and the muslin and the Jamdani. So these are the kind of crafts that we are trying to revive. And we pay them very well. We pay them very high wages, because fortunately there has been a revival. People are beginning to now realize the intricacy behind hand-worked, garments, as opposed to your ready-made, machine-made, computerized, sort of fabrics and craft. So yes, so there has been a revival. I'm very happy about it. We do even bridal wear. We have a lot of brides who are now, having their, trousseaux done here in Bangladesh, rather than taking that flight to Kolkata. We are trying to stop more and more people from, actually doing that. But then again, like I said, there cannot be a fashion police. You cannot say that, it has to be out of choice. We have to be better than the best, so that, they get, whatever they want right here in Dhaka, in Bangladesh, and that's really where we're headed.
Are you happy with the patronage, particularly from the government? I mean, from the ministry?
Actually, to be honest, it's quite minimal. This is really at a personal level. But of course, I must say that, the clients are generous. I think Bangladesh is a great place to, to sort of sell your products. Women are generous, women are beautiful. People, everybody has like, a wedding budget is something which is, which is sort of there. At one time, I used to actually be a little critical about how we're very extravagant with our weddings. But then I realized that actually there is a trickle-down process. So even if there is this grand, wedding, right from the guy who's tying your, the bash for your pandal and the guy who's arranging your flowers, everybody is in business. So really, it keeps the economy moving. So maybe it's not such a bad thing, all our grand weddings. It sort of does keep the economy moving. So, yeah.
Okay, interesting perspective. Local craftsmen, the historical patronage of the royals, and then the shifting of their jobs, and now gradually coming back because they're being supported. I think the economics behind it is the crucial factor, and I'm glad, and I hope to see that more Sarah Kareems come up so that we can, scale these initiatives up.
And also, I think an important factor is that they finally found out that it's different to then sit with the designer and work with them. We customize orders and, do something, color palettes are changing,
Okay.
So all of that is also helpful to, sort of make
Interesting. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Coming over to Shopna, who's the country manager of Marks and Spencers. They buy a lot of ready-made garments from Bangladesh, but Shopna, I'm sure, being the country manager, you have interactions, and most of the times when your buyers are coming in and placing those orders, a significant percentage of those orders, the designs are done perhaps in London or somewhere else where you have a pool of designers. What percentage of your orders are being taken from designers of your suppliers base? Because a lot of the suppliers nowadays are also investing in R&D facilities where they are in themselves developing designs. And how do you see the percentage of Bangladeshi designed products by the research and development centers of the supplier base of Marks and Spencers gradually becoming more in terms of percentage of your procurement policy? Is it a bit too much?
It's all right, Asif bhai, you're always too much anyway. Very good morning, everybody. Before I come to the moderator, I just wanted to say a big congratulations to BISS and ORF coming up with this brilliant concept. And I just look at it as a platform where we are trying to connect all the dots. So big congratulations. It's my absolute honor and privilege to be in front of all of you and to be seated on the stage where Bibi Russell is sitting. Coming back to you, moderator, there is a huge gap. I think as an industry, as a garment industry, there is an economic miracle that we have done in Bangladesh. The manufacturers came from the scratch and became the second largest exporter to the world. It's something very unique to the rest of the world. And I think as a nation, as an industry, we are setting an example to the rest of the world to follow. But connecting with the global aspect, with the designers here, I think there is a massive gap. And forget about designers, I think even institutions, be it all these textile colleges or universities we have, and the private organizations we have, there is a massive gap between the industry requirement and what we have been studying. So I think first we have to connect those dots, and then bringing all these designers that we have in the same platform. As a brand, we source about 40% of our total sourcing out of Bangladesh. Globally, Bangladesh is by far the biggest sourcing for us. And I'm being 100% made in Bangladesh, being a Bangladeshi girl. I have been always in the forefront to do the, carry the flag of Bangladesh. And I have been personally also trying to bring all these designing schools that we have and the students that are coming, connecting them with the designers we have in London. At the moment, if I talk about the percentage, probably about 10% of the design that we are actually buying from the designers, we actually don't even tell them that they're design. We tell it co-creation. Okay. We are co-creating the products together. But look at the opportunities that we have, 90% still coming from the tech packs that we are designing as a brand. But there is a massive opportunity. I think we can bring this authenticity, but they will have to have the global perspective. They will have to have other knowledge about how can we make products sustainable. In the coming days, each and every product that we are going to deliver have to have something to offer. So all these local designers that we are talking about, they will have to also say, whether we are aligned with the trends that is the brands are asking for, the global trend, and then the sustainable aspect of it. If we can connect these two, I think there is ample amount of opportunities in Bangladesh.
Thank you very much. Then again, what I asked to Sarah, you think there are ample qualified institutes that are there? I mean, we from
doubt.
BGMEA, we have a university now. We had the BUFT, but from our experience, we saw that most of them were used for the merchandising roles, not necessarily the designing roles. So I still think there's a big gap there.
Absolutely.
And maybe we can address that. Now, I would like to engage the audience. If there are any questions, yes. Would you please come up, introduce yourself, and ask your question to any of the distinguished panelists here? It's not working.
It's not working.
Can we get a volunteer up here, please? We are losing time. Yes, now it's working.
Thank you. So my name is Mahfouzkur. I'm from BISS. So I have two questions basically to all the panelists. So the first is the textiles clothing value chain. So now we have to shift from the backward linkage to forward linkage in order to sustain in the global textile clothing industry, which is definitely, I mean, Bangladesh is one of the big examples in the world. What do you think regarding the design? Because that is the vehicle that would take Bangladesh forward and make it sustainable, make the total industry sustainable. What would be the kind of vehicle? I mean, we have the lot of creative minds and they are trying to come forward. So that is number one. Number two is basically the use of materials. Now we are using basically in fact, cotton fabrics and textile, technical fabrics and other things. But there are other things like, I mean, jute. So jute is coming forward because it's natural fiber. So are you trying to blend this kind of, I mean, jute in your fashion and take Bangladesh forward? Thank you.
Bibi, would you start off with because you're
working? I think first one Shapna should answer it. Okay. Second part I will because it's more related to garment industry.
Okay.
We are moving forward. You are absolutely right. I think as an industry, we are not even implemented Industry 3. Forget about going to Industry 4. I think we are talking about 3D printing. We're talking about 3D technology that is going to take place. I think as a nation, if we are not, or as an industry, if we are not actually taking all those in consideration, we will be left behind compared to the rest of the world's competition. And if you look at the manufacturers, it's not anymore prescribed by the buyers. I think we have got this young, enthusiastic entrepreneurs who are investing in their ERP system, who are investing in their automation system. And I think this automation process also will be looked at end-to-end process. There is no point just making our production automated. I think we'll have to have this whole value chain automated and then beginning the design. And as I said, this whole dynamics is going to change in terms of having this Industry 4 revelation. Unless and until we are investing in that, we are connecting with them, those organizations, people like Optitex, Tonello, and all of them, we will be left behind. But there is a process that has started. We are slow because we are blessed with this huge workforce that we have, but the manufacturers are taking the steps, and we will see a massive change in the coming years.
Thank you. Bibi.
Okay. Hello. We have many, like jute is the fiber, golden fiber. But you know, anything you use in making fabric, making material, you have to do research. You know, you go to our neighboring country, they have made jute like a silk. They have done it. We have many, and today's world is a lot of recycling. You know, I'm expert in recycling, doing accessories and all these things, you know. But also the thread which breaks, you know, you could reuse it, but need research. You know, I want to tell all of you, I have done all these things not in Bangladesh because I'm a self-funded project. But please, young designers and designers like me, please, you help us with research. You are talking about muslin. Sarah, I want to tell you too. We had a muslin exhibition 2 years ago. Then it stopped. What you get in the market in muslin is not muslin. It's a raw silk. It's a machine made. You know, muslin, that time they used to have it, before sunrise they used to do the spinning. The real muslin we don't have. I have done a research up to 20, but I don't have money to do research. Please, all this fabric, I know she will tell you, whole world is waiting for. If you go through the report of World Economic Forum, what the pollution garment industry is doing with synthetic, it's terrible. So please use natural fibers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Asif. This is Alauddin. I'm a former member of Energy Regulatory Commission. I'm a faculty and television news presenter. As all are equally proud and passionate, so anyone might or all might answer my question. That day, I found on a newspaper that a sad weaver was, a seller of sari was sad and telling that no use making saris because we can't sell more, and girls or women folk nowadays probably don't wear much of saris, other dresses they wear. So can we think of you urging CEOs and industry stalwarts that they can request their colleagues wearing saris 2 days in their workplaces, or any thought like that, which is passionate and kind to those weavers and sellers of saris. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, the topic is culture, and Bengali culture and sari go hand in hand. Would anybody want to take that, Sarah? I know you're a big designer of other products or saris.
So what we do is that, like you said, it may be that fewer people do, wear saris, but then what we're doing is we're also reinventing the sari. So it's easier for, for the younger girls to wear it. So we actually have a whole lot of different designs that we've come up. In fact, we just had a seminar the other day on different styles in which saris can be draped now, including saris which we actually kind of stitch up. So it's actually just zip on. A lot of, our foreign clients actually prefer to wear that because it's easier. It's basically all stitched up and you just zip it up on the side. So, and the archel is stitched up. So yeah, we're working with this, and, they're different. And other than the fact that, the fabric that these weavers use, we then, try to use the same thing for like maybe a kameez or a dress. Like what I'm wearing is actually a jamdani, which, was traditionally be a sari, but we've sort of converted it into like a kameez with a Rajshahi silk dupatta. So, we are reinventing, these traditional crafts so that, the weavers don't have to suffer. They still have an outlet to sell their things. They still get work. And the way we design it and reinvent it is really our job. But the fact is that the weavers should have enough work. They should have sustainable employment throughout the year.
Thank you, Sarah. We have 5 minutes. I'll come to you, but there's somebody who's been there behind you. Very quick question. Please introduce yourself.
I am Naim Mahmood from Bangladesh University of Textile. So as you people are saying that there is a gap between academic and industry, so I am totally agree with that. There is not actually gap, there is huge gap. So from this point of view, I want to ask that what will be the role that as we are not saying any initiative yet, so what will industrialists will collaborate with academy or not, or they are happy with the foreign design? And another question is to dear Shopna ma'am, that the giant buyer like MNS will accept the local design? Thank you.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll take the 3 questions and then I'll get back to the panelists, because I'm just seeing that I've been given 6 more minutes, so I think there was something wrong. But anyway, I'll take the 6 more minutes. So the second question is from you, and then I'll come back to the lady, and then I'll go over to the panel to answer. So please introduce yourself and ask your question. It's on, it's on.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shamal Smakonnen, and I'm a co-founder of a US-based e-commerce company that specializes in providing African products to the US and global markets. One important trend in the global e-commerce landscape is the growing internalization of e-commerce. That means more and more cross-border trade is happening, both business to consumers and also business to business. My question is, Bangladesh being the second largest exporter of garment to the global industry, how is the country leveraging this growing trend in internalization of e-commerce?
Okay.
And can you also talk about if there are any practices that you think hinder the growth of e-commerce in the country? I'd love to learn more about those.
All right, thank you. And your question, please. Introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Naseem Firdaus. A quick question to BGME actually, and also Ms. Bhomik. What is BGME doing to promote local cultural designs for exporters? Has BGME established a design school? I was told that it was planning on doing something like that, but has it actually promoted the local designs, like the designs in the sari, or for example, the Nokshikatha, or things like that, to be merged with products from M&S and others, such as is done in ASEAN countries, especially Indonesia and Malaysia? They've done it beautifully. So has BGME taken any steps towards that?
All right, thank you very much. The lady there, that's the last question I can take because we're running out of time. Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm Lori Rakeshma from Kazakhstan. My question goes to the panelists regarding the production mode. Is it still century-old technology that you use nowadays, as far as muslin production is concerned? Why I'm asking this? Because historically it was known that there was 2 civilizations which were producing silk, like India and China. However, the difference between them was that in China they were taking silk before the silkworm dies, actually killing the silkworm, whereas in India, they were waiting until silkworm naturally dies and then taking the silk out. So as far as muslin production is concerned, do you still use this technology, waiting for the silkworm deal? Because today is now ethical norms also, and as far as this...
Thank you. Very last question, that's it. The lady at the back.
Yeah, I'm going to be very quick. So my question goes to Shropner. I'd just like to be enlightened how the government subsidies and things like taxes are supporting the industry in Bangladesh. What is the government doing to increase the market? And also to understand, are you looking at skills transfer to other regions? Because this brings then the question of scalability and sustainability. At some point, probably you'll not be able to meet the market demands. So are you looking to also set up maybe like schools and diversify your competencies in other regions? Thank you.
Okay. Anybody?
I'll probably go to the first question about the gap and whether as a brand we are taking the local designers' input or not. I think we are not yet there where we need to work as one team. So the institutions, BGMEA, manufacturers, and brands. I think, again, thanks to probably this platform where we can raise this question and come up with an action plan that how can we work as one team and make sure that the future generation who are coming out of this institution, we are bringing them together and the right skill set has been given. Now, I again come back that, as I'm from Bangladesh, I have been trying to promote these local institutions, and you'll be very surprised to know, we make 98% of total Marks & Spencer denims in Bangladesh. When I was looking for an expert, the first request came that we have to have an expert from outside, either from Turkey or from Indonesia, somewhere else. And I said, hang on a minute, let's find out what we have locally. So the denim expert that I have in the office, who is responsible for $180 million business, is coming from a local institution, okay? And the miracle that we have made, as I said, 98% denims is actually coming from Bangladesh. What we have to do, each one of us, we have to be great marketeer. Our biggest challenge is we are not great marketeers. We are not able to sell ourselves better. I think that's where, if we can become great marketeers, we will be able to bring this local talent pool who will make a big difference.
Thank you. How can we be great marketeers, Bibi?
Oh, thank you. I think that you have to know, you have to be focused, you know what is you are selling. You have to be positive. Like when I start to do my collection here, Europe, they said, but Bangladesh, fabric, shrink, fabric, dye, how would you do it? But I want to tell you, I use all local ingredients. Fabric is made by the weavers, but the design is very modern. You have to make diversified thing. You don't want to look at the mobile cell phone. It's changing every month. People want different thing. I made khadi into so many colors and made jeans. Khadi is a fabric. Winter, it's make it warm. Summer, it's make it cool. So you have to know, you have to use the dye, you have to explain, you have to tell what you are selling very positively. That's very important. And do graphic and pictures very simplified, not too many things. I think today, I want to tell all of you, whole world is waiting for Bangladesh. I know garment industry #2, denim #1, but fashion soon will be there.
Excellent, excellent. Sarah, any last remarks before I wrap it up?
Well, somebody was talking about the online business, and I want to say that that definitely is the future as well. We send a lot of our stuff abroad as well, and we're soon, thinking of doing a website and all of that. So yes, the products here are very, very popular with expats, Bangladeshis, and in the subcontinent. So yeah, so e-commerce, of course, very important for what we do. And like Bibi Appa said, I think the fashion industry is ready to take off. We've sort of reached that place where people appreciate what we do, but we need to put in a little bit help from the government would be welcome. I don't know in what form that can be, but yes, I think inshallah, there's a great future.
Thank you.
There's only one thing I want to say, she said about government. When there is a World Cup, when there is things happening, I was in '94 World Cup football, '90 football. It started the stadium. You can see the videos with the Italian designers. So clothes, even the sports, musicians, they all need clothes, So please promote fashion, not like we don't know fashion. Oh, we don't know. Fashion is so important. It's a part of your culture. It's a necessity. So I think the concerned people should understand that fashion designer, they also have to study, they have to know political, geographical, religions, binding. So please, include fashion in thing.
Thank you. Thank you. I think there was a question directed towards me about what are the incentives the government is giving us. We are getting incentives for diversifying into non-traditional export destinations. Because we've always been very focused on North America and Europe. So the government gives us that incentive. And very recently, because the industry is going through some challenges, we are personally very thankful to the Honorable Prime Minister because she has given us 1% incentive until we can sort of rebound and get back on our feet again. So in terms of the government giving us a lot of priority and importance, we get that. But I certainly feel that a lot more can be done in terms of promoting the local designing aspects, the culture and tradition that Bangladesh has always had with its product, with its handloom, with its muslin. These need to be promoted in the international arena. We have an ambassador like Bibi Russell. We don't use her enough. I think there should be a big connect between BGMEA, between our efforts and her international experience. We have to collaborate together and bring everybody on board and have more such discussions. Bring it into a framework where we can benefit, because we are really very tired of the squeezing prices in the international arena. Bangladesh must come out with its own international labels, its own international brands, and one day we want to see Bangladeshi labeled products using Bangladeshi materials in all the big high street markets and also in e-commerce in Amazon and Alibaba and everywhere else. I thank all my panelists. I think it's been a wonderful, stimulating discussion. I thank the audience for participating and engaging, and I thank the organizers for inviting us to talk about this very important and relevant topic. Thank you very much.